shocking truth, why is this little girl here? A single dad's dark secret unveiled forever. In a forgotten corner of Maplewood, whispers floated like ghosts through the autumn streets. An eerie fog cloaked the town, wrapping everything in a shroud of mystery. It was there that a bewildered little girl, no more than 6, stood alone on the front porch of a decrepit house. Her hair, tangled and wild, framed a face twisted in confusion. Tears pooled in her big, haunting eyes as she clutched a faded teddy bear tightly to her chest, its one button eye staring at the world in silent horror. Where were her parents? Why was she here? The once bright blue paint on the house now peeled like old memories, and the sagging porch creaked ominously under her tiny weight. Passers-by slowed their steps, their murmurs blending into a cacophony of concern and curiosity. "Isn't that Jason's place?" One woman gasped, her voice trembling. "What is happening to that poor girl?" They all recognized Jason, a single dad, a quiet man who kept to himself. But there was something darker swirling around him, something sinister they had sensed but never dared to voice. As night fell, shadows began to stretch across the yard, dancing with an unsettling life of their own. A strange light flickered behind the curtains, casting haunting silhouettes against the walls. What was happening inside? People exchanged fearful glances, their imaginations ignited by what these flickers might mean. The air grew thick with tension, curling around them like an uninvited guest. Then, from the depths of that daunting house, a wail pierced the stillness. It was a sound that sent shivers down the spine of every listener. A mixture of despair and desperation clawed at their chests. Jason emerged, his face pale, a mask of fear. He took a shaky step toward the crowd, his eyes darting between the concerned onlookers and the child still on the porch. "Go home. It's not what you think," he shouted, panic etching his strained voice, but the crowd only gasped, too stunned to move. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the crowd remained transfixed, Jason's face blanched a whiter shade, and the little girl's eyes locked onto his, filled with an unbearable mixture of longing and fear. A low rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, as if the sky itself reflected their unease. What secrets lurked in the shadows of that house? Why was she left to stand alone in the gathering storm? The questions hung heavy in the air, waiting to be answered, while the sense of foreboding deepened. The crowd stood rooted to the spot as fear rippled through them like a shockwave. Jason pushed a hand through his disheveled hair, desperation cracking his composure. "Please, you have to trust me," he pleaded, but the nervous chatter swelled around him, drowning out his pleas. They exchanged glances, the townsfolk now united by a shared sense of alarm. "Is she in danger?" A voice finally broke through the murmur, trembling yet fierce. It was Mrs. Thompson, the local librarian known for her hawkish instincts. She stepped forward, eyes narrowing. Jason shook his head, yet doubt flickered in his expression. "No. I promise, she is safe," it's just he faltered, glancing back at the house where shadows flitted beyond the window. The wail had subsided, but an unsettling silence now roared. From outside, the little girl stared unblinking at Jason, those round eyes filled with confusion and a tinge of hope. "Daddy?" The word hung in the air, an echo of innocence against the dark undertones that surrounded them. Jason took a hesitant step toward her, but the crowd's murmurs escalated, nervous with suspicion. "What do you mean, Daddy?" Another villager barked, brows knitted, suspicion turning into outright hostility. Instinctively, Jason's hand tightened around the porch railing, knuckles whitening. "She is my daughter, but your daughter?" A man shouted from the back, incredulous. You've barely mentioned her. What is going on in that house? Feeling the weight of eyes upon him, Jason's mind raced, scrabbling for explanations that refused to surface, trapped beneath layers of horror and a truth he feared to unearth. Thunder cracked again, this time louder, rattling the confines of their fears. Why does she look so scared? Another voice piped up, sending a fresh ripple through the crowd. The bewilderment hung thick, and a biting chill swept across the yard. Jason swallowed hard, the lump in his throat thickening. She's just confused, but confusion was the least of it. A flash of movement inside the house caught his eye, and his heart raced. It felt like the walls were closing in, the air thickening like molasses. He remembered the words whispered from the shadows warning him of what might happen if the truth ever slipped free. Suddenly, the little girl's voice rang out, cutting through the tension. I want to go home. It was a pitiful plea, laced with both innocence and an understanding that sent shivers down the spines of everyone gathered. At that moment, headlights broke the fog as a police cruiser rolled up, blue lights flashing in stark contrast to the darkness. The crowd shifted uneasily, the murmur lowering into anxious whispers. They watched, wide-eyed, as the officer stepped out, a grim look on his face. Jason Miller, he called, voice steady yet filled with authority. We need to talk. But instead of moving toward the officer, Jason's gaze flicked to the child on the porch. The urgency in that little girl's voice echoed in his mind like the tolling of a bell. The officer took a step forward, eyes narrowing in suspicion. What is going on here? As Jason opened his mouth to answer, the house groaned ominously. The flickering light behind the curtains again flared up, casting an unsettling glow across the porch. The crowd gasped. Was there something lurking within the shadows, that dark secret they all long suspected? When Jason would unearth the reality of his life, would it change everything? Something deep inside him knew he was running out of time, and just as the officer took another step closer, Jason's voice broke through the thick haze of confusion. You have to believe me, she's not just a little girl. She's the one who. And then Jason stopped, his eyes wide with terror. What had come through the shadows would soon be revealed, or would it be too late? The tension in the air thickened as Jason's heart pounded. He sensed the eyes of the crowd boring into him, questions hanging on their lips, fueled by unspoken fears. To the onlookers, Jason was already an enigma now, he was something more, a potential threat. Jason, what are you hiding? The officer's glare cut through the mounting dread, urging him to speak, to reveal whatever damning secret twisted in his chest, but how could he explain? How could he voice the unspeakable horrors lurking within his mind? He rasped, struggling to form coherent thoughts. The words danced around him, taunting him like phantoms in the corners of his mind. Didn't he mean to what? Demanded Mrs. Thompson, stepping just a fraction closer, her brow furrowed in fierce determination. You can't just leave us in the dark. The little girl shifted, her wavering voice breaking through the chaos. Mommy, I want my mommy. At that moment, something dark moved within the house. An electric current of terror shot through the crowd. Gasps and sharp intakes of breath mixed with the thundering pulse of anxiety. Jason felt the weight of his own chest constricting, his breath becoming shallow. Turn back, he wanted to scream. But how could he? The officer's hand swiped toward the door. We're going in, he announced. The crowd resounded with anxious murmurs, some taking a step backward, others moving forward, seeking answers. Before Jason could muster the courage to stop him, the policeman shoved the door open. Stay right there. He ordered Jason, who stood frozen, part of him amazed another being wielded so much power over the tangled mess of his life. As the officer crossed the threshold, that ominous glow from inside pulsed like a heartbeat. Shocked whispers coursed through the front yard, where every individual clutched their fears tighter than before. The shadows kicked up a storm of questions, and as the officer ventured deeper into the house, Jason knew it was now or never. He was spiraling into chaos, and he needed to act. Wait! He called, breaking the spell of apprehension. Please don't, but the officer had already disappeared into the gloom, the door swaying closed behind him. The air around Jason felt electric and alive, laced with anxiety. A cacophony of distant noises, haunting and unfathomable, drifted out from within. Jason? The little girl's voice wavered, cutting through the growing dread. Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears. Why can't we go home? In that moment, the truth fell onto him like the dark weight of a thundercloud. Because there's something in there, he blurted, feeling the tremors in his voice. Something that's not supposed to be not anymore. The crowd shifted, the reality of his words racing beyond the barrier of disbelief. Jason turned, searching for supportive nods, convincing glances, anything to anchor him in that moment. But all he saw was fear reflected in their faces. The officer's voice echoed from inside. What the hell? A sound like shattering glass followed, frantic and violent, crashing through the fragile line of tension like a gunshot. Jason's heart sank as dread swelled within him. His little girl peered up at him, eyes wide with understanding, asking questions without words. What's happening, Daddy? Jason's world began to coalesce into a visceral nightmare, every feeling solidifying into a singular purpose, to protect her. He dashed toward the door, heart racing, but the crowd surged in, blocking his path. Jason! You can't, they cried, desperate to pull him back from the brink of whatever awaited beyond that portal to darkness, but another scream echoed from inside the house, a wail of anguish mingled with something terrible, like the twisted laughter of shadows. Get away from there! An older man shouted, panic spilling over, and yet, all he could think about was his daughter, the inevitable truth creeping toward them, and whatever horror lay unleashed in that house. Don't let it get to her! Jason shouted, and with that, he pushed through the crowd, ready to uncover the truth, or die trying. Behind him, the doors slammed shut, sealing them all in mortal dread. What awaited now was their reckoning with the darkness. But in that heartbeat, Jason heard it again, a low voice from within, singing softly, beckoning him closer, and it was connected to the horrors they all feared. What had been unleashed? And why was it so intricately tied to them all? The door loomed before Jason like a threshold to a different world. His heart pounded in time with the eerie melody floating from within. He could taste fear on his tongue, bitter and raw, yet it mingled with an undeniable urge to step forward. He just needed to get to her, to shield her from the unknowable things in that house. Jason! A voice pierced through the chaos. It was Mrs. Thompson, her face a mix of concern and accusation. What do you know? You can't just run in there. Her words dripped with suspicion, but they were drowned out by another gunshot-like crash echoing inside. Jason flinched. I don't know. He shouted back, desperation bubbling to the surface. But we have to get her out. Get who out? An older man barked, eyebrows knitting together. He was gripping a neighbor's shoulder, as if seeking comfort against the growing horror. What are you talking about? The truth was a pebble lodged in his throat. He could feel the eyes of the crowd on him, waiting, hungering for something, anything that would explain the chaos. The last thing he wanted was to unravel before them, to spill his secrets and add fuel to their fears. He gritted his teeth and pressed forward, breaking free from the crowd's suffocating grip, but as he reached for the knob, dread gave him pause. What if the officer was right? What if he was wading into an abyss that could swallow him whole? The thought nagged at him, but looking back at his daughter's trembling figure stilled his hesitation. Please, sweetheart, stay right here, he whispered to her before turning toward the door, assuring himself with every shaky breath that he would do everything in his power to protect her. He twisted the knob, heart racing as he faced the dark corridor ahead. The interior felt warped, shadows stretching like fingers across the walls. Each step echoed louder than the last, dragging him into the menacing embrace of the unknown. And then he saw it, a figure shrouded in darkness, flickering like an old film reel. Officer? Jason's voice was barely a whisper, unease wrapping around him. Are you there? Silence answered him. A shiver danced up his spine, every instinct screaming at him to turn back. Yet, ahead, he could just make out the faint outline of the officer, motionless. "Please, say something." Suddenly, a soft voice broke through the hushed dread. The little girl. "Daddy?" Her call, innocent and laden with fear, snapped him into action. Jason rushed down the corridor, every instinct honed in on that sweet voice guiding him through the darkness. Then he rounded a corner, and there was a room with an odd glow pulsating from within. His heart raced. What could be so captivating? What lure was that voice crafting? Peering inside, he gasped. The officer was slumped on the floor, unconscious. But it was the sight beyond him that made his stomach churn. A strange, nebulous form hovered in the center of the room, swaying gently. It pulsed with an unearthly light, the melody intertwining with guttural whispers that rippled through the air. "Get away from him!" Jason shouted, protecting his daughter behind him instinctively. But the figure danced, casting shadows that crept along the walls, promising secrets and long-lost whispers, and there was something familiar about the way it moved. Something achingly close to him, something that gripped his past and squeezed tight. "Jason," the entity sang, the voice echoing in his mind. "Stay with me, don't you want to know?" His heart raced. What had he done? What had he unleashed by bringing his daughter into this cursed fate? Just as he took a step closer, a hand gripped his shoulder, yanking him back. It was the older man from the crowd, eyes wide with terror. "You can't let it take you. We have to get out." But Jason's mind was spiraling. He caught a glimpse of a face from the shadows, one that struck a chord deep within, a face he hadn't seen in years. "Wait, no." He gasped as recognition dawned. "Is this? But how could she be here?" The air shifted, and the music crescendoed, folding around him like a shroud. Darkness pulled tight, fingers reaching for his heartbeat. "Daddy!" His daughter screamed, a note of sheer terror slicing through the melody. What had he stumbled into? What truth lay behind this figure? And why did it feel as if the echoes of his past had now risen to reclaim him? Jason's resolve faltered as shadows clawed at his sanity. He had thought to save her, but it seemed fate had intertwined their fates into a deadly weave. "Run!" he shouted, desperation clenching his throat, but he felt the weight of the family's legacy pulling him under. How could he protect her from the very essence of what haunted him? And then that voice beckoned again, sweet and sinister. "Come to me, Jason, you know you want to." Was this the start of his salvation or the dawn of his demise? The true horror lay ahead. As reality blurred, Jason contemplated his own breaking point. Would he be strong enough to face what was to come? What dark truths awaited, buried deep in the shadows, ready to be uncovered? Jason's heart thundered in his chest, each beat sounding like a drumroll for a dreadful revelation. He wrestled with the chaos swirling around him, the demands of the present and the shadows of the past tangling like smoke. The creature before him pulsated with eerie energy, that sweetly sinister voice promising answers and sowing confusion at the same time. "Daddy!" His daughter cried again, the tremor in her voice sending shockwaves through him. He turned to the older man, desperate for clarity, but fear had turned the once familiar face into a mask of panic. "Get out now!" the man shouted, his voice cracking under the strain. "It doesn't matter who that thing is. You need to protect your daughter." But how? The pull of the entity was stronger than Jason imagined, the familiar features floating within the shadows irresistibly beckoning him closer. Was it his long-lost sister, vanished years ago? Had the house somehow summoned her from the murky depths of his memories, twisting it into something otherworldly? "Let go of me!" he yelled, shrugging off the older man's grip as he stepped forward, fists clenched in defiance. The air grew heavy, thickening with unsaid words and nightmares trapped in the recesses of Jason's mind. "What do you want?" he demanded, voice hoarse from the fear that threatened to swallow him whole. "I want you to remember," Jason, the voice echoed, pulling at his very soul. Those words wrapped around him like vines, promising to unravel everything he thought he understood about his own past. "Don't you feel the pieces aligning? Behind him, his daughter's screams punctured the rising cacophony of whispers, wrenching his attention. "Daddy, please." The innocent plea sliced through the ethereal seriousness of the moment, stark and pure. He would not allow her to suffer because of his choices. The tension in the room became unbearable as the creature pulsated in time with the music. Shadows swirled, flickering with fragments of memories. With each flash, Jason felt a truth he had buried deep within claw its way to the surface, a truth he had kept hidden from everyone including himself. "Stop. Just stop." He shouted, desperation coating his words. The room shook, reverberating with an unseen energy, like the tremors before a storm. Suddenly, the glow from the entity flickered, momentarily revealing the full form of the shadowed figure, a woman with eyes that sparkled with a mix of love and sorrow. It was her, the sister he had lost, the burden he had carried, the guilt from a promise unfulfilled. No, Jason's breath hitched as he stepped back, the realization hitting him like a freight train. Why now? After all these years? What have you done to her? No one has done anything, Jason. The figure countered, her voice pleading. You had a choice, and you choose to forget. To run from your past. The walls seemed to close in on him, the melody dancing around him like a living thing, each note a reminder of the pain he long suppressed. He could almost see the echoes of laughter and longing floating through the tendrils of shimmering light. The weight of his decision pulled him down again, memories of a family torn apart, visions of anguish and regret surfacing like bubbles in a boiling pot. His heart tore at the thought. If he faced this truth, what would it mean for his daughter? What legacy of pain would he be passing on? Don't! He shouted, raising a hand to fend off the shadows clawing at him. I won't let this happen again. And then, in an unexpected moment of clarity, Jason turned to his daughter, eyes wide with fear yet steadfast. You have to trust me, sweetheart. We're getting out of here. With a renewed sense of determination, Jason remembered why he had walked into this nightmare, to protect her. Hand in hand, they took slow steps backward as the creature lunged, lashing out in fury at his defiance. Jason! You're going the wrong way. The woman's voice cried, but he was resolute now, ready to confront whatever lay ahead rather than sink back into painful oblivion. As they retreated, the light dimmed, shadows swallowing the room. Jason felt a pull, almost like a gravitational force drawing him back toward the entity, the promise of knowledge and closure within those swirling forms. Yet he stood firm, his daughter's grip grounding him in the present. I won't lose you, he declared, his voice breaking as he turned to face the darkened corridor. But as they reached the doorway, an unexpected crash echoed behind them, a final desperate grasp for him to return to the unknown. What awaited Jason and his daughter outside the door? What horrors had they just barely escaped? The chilling whispers slipped into silence, leaving behind an oppressive void, but the echo of his sister's voice haunted the edges of his consciousness. Was it over? Or had they only just begun to unravel the darkness that awaited beyond the threshold? The answers lay ahead, waiting to be unearthed. Jason pushed through the door, pulling his daughter behind him, but the world beyond the threshold swallowed them in intimidating shadows. The hallway stretched before them, lined with peeling wallpaper that chronicled years of neglect. Dim light flickered from a distant bulb, casting ghostly silhouettes that danced ominously on the walls. Daddy, what's happening? His daughter's voice quivered, and he could feel the tremor in her small hand. It sparked an urgency in him, a need to shield her from whatever horrors lurked in this forsaken place. We'll be okay, sweetheart, he assured her, though the words tasted like ash in his mouth. He stole a glance back at the door, a jagged smile on his sister's face lingering in his mind. There were so many questions. Why now, why here? But time didn't allow for answers. They needed to move. As they ventured deeper into the dim corridor, the floorboards creaked under their weight, sounding alarms with each step. The air thickened, a heavy tension wrapping around them like a vice. Shadows reached out, twisting into familiar shapes that sent ice daggers through his heart. Then he heard a low hum that reverberated in his bones, vibrating with forbidding energy. It grew louder, a haunting symphony of whispers that seemed to weave together fragments of forgotten memories. His sister's voice blended into the mix, an ethereal call that sent shudders through him. "Go away!" he yelled, panic exploding from him as he clutched his daughter's hand tighter. "Just leave us alone." But the hum intensified, almost mocking him. He glanced at his daughter to reassure her, but her face reflected his own fear, wide eyes searching his for protection. The weight of his choices crushed him, every decision had led them here, every act of denial carving a darker path. "Focus on me, okay? We can't lose each other," Jason urged, his voice steadier than the turmoil inside him. They turned a corner, coming face to face with a room that looked like it had been frozen in time. Dusty furniture lay scattered, a children's doll with glassy eyes perched upon a decrepit chair. The sight knifed through him. This was no coincidence. Was the house playing tricks or bringing him face to face with his demons? "Look at that!" his daughter whispered, her small finger pointing toward the wall. Scrawled graffiti marked the surface, words that made his blood run cold: "You can never escape." "Stay close," he whispered, but adrenaline was pumping through his veins, urging him to explore. That phrase crawled under his skin. It echoed everything he feared about his past. If the house had summoned his sister, did it have the power to summon memories too? The room felt alive, shadows twitching as he moved. On the floor, he noticed a significant shift in the dust. Kneeling, he revealed a jewel-toned locket, its surface tarnished but intact. A sense of urgency overwhelmed him. He opened it, breath hitching at the sight, a picture of his sister and him as children, carefree, smiling. "Daddy?" His daughter's question pulled him from the chokehold of nostalgia. He realized they weren't alone. A figure stood at the doorway, the air around it vibrating with unease. Jason, the figure spoke, the voice almost the same as the haunting echoes he had heard before. "You can't keep running from us. It's time to face the truth." Reality shifted beneath his feet as recognition sparked. This was somebody he had long thought lost, a piece of the puzzle he had locked away. The air thickened, and Jason's heart raced, a battle between fear and purpose igniting within him. "Get behind me!" he shouted, instinctively placing himself between the figure and his daughter. What did this mean? Was it another trap? What truth could the figure reveal that would change everything? With every breath, silence wrapped around them, pooling thick in the air. Jason faced the figure, eyes locked in combat, but while the resolution blazed within him, dread seeped into his bones. What would he uncover? What costs must be paid? The answer hung tantalizingly out of reach, but one thing was clear: he could not turn back now. What dark truths awaited him? And could he endure the fallout when they finally emerged? "Jason," the figure repeated, stepping closer. Its face emerged from the shadows like the sun fighting through storm clouds. Familiar yet foreign, a twisted reflection of the past. His sister, Sarah. She looked the same, but there were lines etched into her face that hadn't been there before. Jason's breath caught in his throat. "It can't be you. What's wrong, big brother?" she said, her voice dripping with a mockery only family could master. "Scared to see your favorite ghost?" "Don't call her that." He turned, throwing an arm protectively around his daughter, shielding her from the weight of the truth. "You're not real. This is a nightmare." But as he peered into Sarah's eyes, he felt the cold grip of reality squeezing tighter. The house throbbed, the hum stronger now, entwined with the sound of his own heartbeat. "What do you want?" he demanded, every word a desperate effort to mask his fear. "Want?" She laughed, a sound so hollow it echoed back against the peeling walls. "I want you to finally open your eyes. You've been running too long." "That's not true." Jason's fists clenched, anger bubbling to the surface. He could feel the sweat pooling in the small of his back. "I've done everything to keep them safe. To keep her safe." He glanced at his daughter, who stood wide-eyed, confusion and fear warring on her innocent face. "Have you The question hung in the air, thick with judgment. Look where we are. You brought her into this haunted place. Don't you see? You're dragging her into your mess. No. He shot back, desperation clawing at him. I'm trying to protect her from all of this. Protect her? A slow pitying smile crept across her lips, and Jason felt bile rise in his throat. You think this is protection? You think hiding it all will make it go away? The shadows flickered, shifting restlessly. He could feel them urging him forward, whispering secrets that had been buried too deep. What truth? He asked, forcing himself to stand firm. The old floorboards creaked in his stead, a reminder of the burdens he carried. Come, brother. Her tone softened, terrifyingly soothing. Let us face it together. Jason looked at his daughter, shaking at his side. His heart broke at the thought of exposing her to this raw agony. No, he stated, more firmly this time. We won't do this, not now. But you already have, Sarah shot back, her voice echoing with the weight of memories. You think you can shield her from the darkness? The past is already here, Jason. It always has been. The locket still rested in his hand, the image of his younger self and Sarah smiling back at him. In that moment, he felt the strings of their family ties, fraught with history and hidden truths, unraveling dangerously like an old, worn rope. Let us move forward, shall we? Sarah said, drifting towards the room's far corner where a small door stood ajar. A doorway to darkness. Stay back. Jason shouted, but the words seemed futile. His sister's voice, her laughter, her pleas swirled around him. What lies beyond that door is where your truth lives, Jason. Face it with me, or you'll forever run in circles. Your daughter deserves to know. His pulse hammered in his ears. The walls felt like they were closing in, suffocating him. Sweat dripped down his spine, cold and clammy against his skin. He knew he had to choose. To confront or retreat. Please, Daddy. His daughter's voice wavered. I'm scared. I want to go home. He could feel the warmth of her hand, her innocence grounding him. His heart raced as the pressure mounted, each heartbeat pulsing louder than the last, drowning out the whispers. What if there was a way out? What if this was all a trap? Jason's mind raced through sensational what-ifs. But before he could respond, Sarah stepped fully into the light, and the shadows flickered harshly, revealing a glimpse of a figure standing behind her, shrouded in darkness. Jason, you need to see. Sarah's voice softened, and then cracked. Tension thickened again, tightening like a noose around their throats. The figure behind her shifted, and everything went still. What lay behind that door? Would he find the truth, or was this the beginning of the end? He took a staggering breath, the decision weighing heavily on him. What would he uncover when he opened that door? And could he really face the reality buried within the shadows? Jason stood at the crossroads of fear and desperation as Sarah's words hung in the air like a thick fog. Every fiber of his being screamed to flee, yet something deep inside him urged him to step forward. He glanced down at his daughter, still clutching his leg, her wide eyes full of uncertainty. Daddy. She pleaded softly, the tremor in her voice slicing through his heart that he knelt beside her, cupping her small face in his trembling hands. I need you to trust me, sweetheart. No matter what you hear, I promise I will protect you. His voice shook as he spoke, but he hoped she sensed his resolve. With a tentative nod, she let go of his leg, though her expression was still marred by fear. He felt her pain like a cut on his own hand, and it only fueled his determination. Now, back to Sarah. Her gaze was locked onto the shadow. A flicker of something darker danced in her eyes, pulling him closer to the door. Don't you see? Sarah urged, her voice a haunting melody that tugged at the frayed edges of his memory. You can't keep hiding. It's time for the truth. I'm done with your games. Jason snapped, anger coursing through him. You don't get to dictate what I feel. My family doesn't belong in this horror. She tilted her head, her smile warped, an unsettling mix of pity and mockery. This is your horror, Jason. You let it in. You brought her to the very place you were meant to shield her from. He flinched, the weight of her accusation hitting him like a struck drum. Memories washed over him, reminding him of the nights he'd spent trying to drown his past in alcohol rather than face it. He had thought escaping would make it all go away. Open the door, Sarah insisted, her voice rising as the shadows swirled around her, a living entity wrapped around her. What's behind that door? Jason asked, fighting to keep his voice steady. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple as he clenched the locket tightly, the edges digging into his palm. What do you want me to see? The betrayal, the pain, all of it, Sarah replied, her tone laced with sorrow and resentment. You have to own it, Jason. The only way through is to confront what you've lost. Jason inhaled sharply, fear pooling in his stomach like lead. He felt her words scratching at the surface, something deep inside him clawing back and screaming to be set free. He glanced at the door again, the darkness beyond it tempting him with its secrets. Please, we shouldn't be here, he whispered, his heart racing at the thought of stepping into that unknown abyss. Or maybe Sarah stepped back, forming shadows that turned into something more sinister. Maybe we can stay in the light, together. But you have to face him first. The figure behind her grew more defined, a fractured silhouette that felt all too familiar. Jason's breath quickened. Who is that? He could barely form the words, dread pooling in his throat. That's your father, Sarah's voice was chilling, echoing from the depths of his memory. The man you've avoided talking about for years. The one who left us to drown. Jason's heart dropped. Staring into her eyes, he could see the pain reflected back at him. The weight of the past was finally crashing down. But he had sworn to never let it surface again. Get away from her. He shouted as he stepped forward, desperation overtaking him. But the walls throbbed ominously. The figure started to reach out from the shadows, long fingers curling into the light. Are you ready to learn the truth, Jason? The voice was low and haunting, echoing memories of old. Are you ready to face what you've always run from? Jason stood frozen. The door loomed behind Sarah, beckoning him into its dark mouth. What awaited him? Was this truly the moment he had to dive into the chaos of buried family secrets and lies? He held his breath, heart drumming in a frantic rhythm, teetering on the edge of revelation. His gaze flicked from Sarah to his daughter, waiting for a sign. Just as he made the decision to move, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into darkness. What was waiting for him on the other side? Would he find the strength to confront his demons, or would it consume them all? The darkness enveloped Jason, swallowing him whole. There was no light, no boundaries, only silence pressing against his eardrums like thick cotton. He felt a pulse of fear in his veins, his heart racing as he strained to see something, anything, in the black void. Daddy! His daughter's voice broke through the dark, laced with terror. It was the anchor he needed. Arya! Panic shot through him, and he reached out, searching the air for her small hand. The touch of her warm skin, steady and real, grounded him amidst the unseen shadows swirling around. Daddy, it's scary. Her voice quivered, and that made his resolve harden. I'm here, I'm right here, he said, forcing reassurance into each syllable, even as dread gnawed at his insides. Just hold my hand. Suddenly, a flicker of light sliced through the darkness. It was not bright, but it was enough to illuminate Sarah's face. The haunting smile she wore widened, as if enjoying the fear she had stirred. Behind her, the figure of Jason's father loomed larger, his features almost tangible yet shrouded in murky shadows. Why can't you let go of the past, Jason? His father's voice echoed, the tone crackling with frustration and bitterness. You can't protect her from what she has to know. From what? What do you mean? Jason demanded, but the courage he tried to summon felt thin, fluttering like a moth against a flame. You think burying it deep will shield her? Sarah interjected, her eyes gleaming with dark satisfaction. But all you're doing is passing it down. She deserves to know the truth. The weight of her words hung heavy, dense like a storm cloud ready to break. Arya squeezed his hand tighter, her small fingers trembling. The light dimmed, and for a moment, Jason felt as if the air around him thickened, suffocating. I'm not afraid, Arya declared, voice quivering but resolute. You said you'd protect me. But at what cost? Jason whispered, dread pooling low in his stomach. Every cringe-inducing truth buried beneath his numbness began to rise like bile. Open the door, Jason, Sarah urged, almost pleadingly, as if she meant for him to step into the very words he dreaded. Face what you've done. It's the only way to save her. I can't, he gasped, feeling the weight of a decade of denial crashing down around him. I can't. Not again. The figure behind Sarah shifted, breaking free from the shadow as he stepped into the grim flicker of light. He was older now, with hallowed cheeks and a wild mane of unkempt hair. Jason's heart sank. Look at me, son, the man demanded, his voice a gruff blend of anger and sorrow. I became everything you feared. But I never wanted to be that. You have to confront it before it claims another life. Jason's chest felt tight, each breath becoming more laborious than the last. Was this truly the moment? Would reliving the past lead to salvation or ultimate devastation? Jason. Sarah's voice pierced the fog, urgency crackling in the air. You and I both know the truth is not something you can keep hidden forever. His father's gaze bore into him, a lifetime of regret pooled within those depths. Staring back into the abyss, Jason stood poised between fear and defiance. Are you going to let the past define you? Or are you going to fight back? His father's challenge echoed like a war cry, reverberating throughout the darkness. Jason couldn't shake the knot of dread tightening within him. What was the truth, and was he ready to face it? A pulse of anger ignited within him, intertwined with a flicker of desperation. If he turned away now, he risked losing everything, including Arya. There was a split second it felt like an eternity where every memory flooded in, the pain, the loss, the shame. The secrets that had kept him chained. Finally, he made his choice. What if there's no way back? He murmured, fragile hope battling against despair. Then we fight together, Arya whispered, her voice fragile yet firm. With a deep breath, he stepped forward into the void, the door behind Sarah slowly creaking open. This was the moment of truth. Would they step into the light or plunge deeper into darkness? And would they survive the revelation waiting for them? As the door creaked open, Jason squinted against the blinding light that burst forth. It cascaded like a waterfall, illuminating a room that felt impossibly familiar yet jarringly foreign. The walls mirrored the heartache of his past. Pictures of happier times glimmered like stars, memories of joy caught between the shadows of despair. Arya, stay close, he instructed, grounding himself in the sound of her soft, terrified breaths. The glow filled every corner, washing away the suffocating darkness, revealing a scene he had long buried beneath layers of denial. Standing at the center of the room, amidst echoes that felt like haunting whispers, was a table cluttered with old toys, forgotten laughter, and a welcoming warmth that both comforted and tormented him. Where had all the joy gone? The childish echoes faded, leaving only the bitter taste of regret in their place. Daddy, what's happening? Arya's voice trembled, a plea that brought focus back to the moment. The answer pounded against Jason's heart, buried beneath denial. It's time to face the truth, he murmured, glancing at Sarah, who stood beside the figure of their father, his eyes filled with a desperation that mirrored his own. Arya squeezed his hand, gathering courage. What truth? She asked, her voice larger than the fear around them. His father stepped forward, shadows falling away from his form, now vulnerable and remorseful. This is where it all began, he said, each word a heavy confession. We thought the pain would disappear if we ignored it, but secrets rot from within. Jason felt the world spin. The realization struck him his denial had festered into a poisonous truth, one he had unintentionally shielded Arya from. The echo of past mistakes reverberated, each memory unveiling a piece of the puzzle he had desperately tried to piece together. "It's not just about me," he whispered, looking at Arya. "This time, we can face what's haunting us together." "Why do you say we when it's you?" Sarah interjected, folding her arms, frustration mixing with compassion in her eyes. "You've carried this burden alone for too long. But it's time for you to understand that running won't save her." Jason stood straighter, heart pounding like thunder, as layers of old grief peeled away. "I can't let her suffer for my mistakes. I'm done making excuses. Whatever happened, whatever I did in that darkness, I will reveal it. I owe that to her." Arya's face lit up, as if she was finding strength in her father's resolve. "We can do it, Daddy. I trust you." With that, the walls around him seemed to shimmer as if listening, eager for the forgotten tales to be told. Each heartbeat echoed louder as if the house itself wanted to be freed from the chains of its own sorrows. Together, Jason stated firmly. "We'll face whatever this is." As he stepped toward the old toys scattered around the room, memories flooded back. Laughter with Arya darting around their house, the warmth of shared moments, the spark of life, all interrupted by the specter of loss and pain he had wrapped around himself. He picked up a stuffed bear, its worn fur brushing against him like an old friend. "This bear belonged to your aunt," he said, his voice shaking with emotion. "I gave it to her long ago, before the day she vanished." His heart ached, each word releasing tension. "I let fear drive me into isolation. I built walls to protect you, thinking I was helping, but it only tore us apart." Jason turned to Sarah, who nodded gently, her expression softening as understanding washed over him. "You remember her, don't you?" "I do," Arya chimed in innocently, clutching onto her father tighter. "She smelled like candy and loved to play dress-up." In that moment, the shadows behind Sarah began to dissolve, the truth bringing an undeniable light to their darkness. "Facing the past is hard, but it's the only way forward," Sarah said, her voice now ethereal yet tender. "For you and for Arya. We can be free of it." As if the house itself was relenting, the oppressive atmosphere began to lift. The warm light wrapped around them, suffusing them with an almost tangible hope. Jason looked down at Arya, her face glowing with the belief that whispered promises of safety. "Let us move forward together. No more running." He faced the old door at the far end of the room, a portal to a new beginning. The shadows that had loomed were overtaken by warmth, love, and the strength of shared truth. With Arya's hand securely held in his, he took a deep breath, pushing through the light into the next chapter. The air shifted as they emerged from the dark past, stepping into a future that glimmered with possibility. As they left that space behind, leaving the burdens of what had once been, Jason felt lighter. Finally forced to confront his pain, he had woven their bonds tighter than ever. Each step forward unlocked more strength, every glance exchanged silenced their fears. They were free, but that freedom came with a collective urgency that surged through Jason. Jumping at the chance to empower their community, he felt the need to share their story, a warning wrapped in wisdom. "Arya," Jason said, looking at his daughter, "it's time to tell people our truth." "Yeah, let us do it." She grinned, mischief flickering in her eyes, and as they stepped into the light, he knew this was the moment to inspire change, to share the strength they had found, and to venture deeper into a world that could only thrive on truth and honesty. Now help him honor that pivotal moment. You need to subscribe now. Don't miss the next exclusive stories that will unravel the truth you crave. Smash that like button now. Your support feeds the algorithm and keeps us pushing forward. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about what just happened. Your voice matters, and we want to hear it. Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends. Don't wait even one more second. Let us get the word out about the power of facing our truths. This is the moment to connect with this amazing community, and only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.